Hey everybody, welcome back inside another exciting episode of the Stash Report from the Stash Project. I was sitting around playing with the July kits, and I suddenly realized, oh, boop, I didn't do the June kit video. So, let's go through the June kits that you may have already purchased, or you just don't know exist because I didn't do the video on time. You'll be relatively quick. It's going to be 14 items on the agenda here, 5 on the domestic U.S. kit manufacturer side, and the other 9 in Japan. Little varieties of spice of life here. Starting over at round 2, MPC branding. Got a reissue of the 1953 Ford stepside pickup. Now, this is an old tooling. It's not as old as you might think it would be. It came out in the 1970s. It's got the original box art on the box here. It's so cool on that point. Got pad printed tires and slicks added to it, so that's new in this release. Obviously, expanded the decal sheet. Obviously, new decals on all these new releases. Otherwise, this kit remains unchanged from its origins. Always been the exact same kit inside. I will say that it's a pretty mediocre kit overall, mainly because the flipping front end has never, in my experience, I built one of these in the AMT Ertl days, that front end does not actually function. Oh, it might pose open, it might pose closed, but you flip it a couple of times and you'll snap it right off. Maybe if you short it up with some actual brass tubing and rod and stuff like that so that it functioned in a metal fashion, it might not break. But the thing is with model kits, a lot of times with this, since you're not just flipping like a little bit, you're flipping the entire front clip over, anything like this that has a lot of stress on plastic parts, they usually tend not to last. And the fit on this has never really been particularly great with that front end. And so, yeah. Buy it for what it is, a weird street rod type of thing, you'll be in good shape. If you buy it with the intentions of anything else, you're probably going to be disappointed. The other release this month out of round 2 on the AMT side of things is the all-new tool, Craftsman Plus cloning of the 1964 Chevelle Malibu SS. So this is entirely new tooling from the ground up. Obviously, much like the 65, 69 GTOs and the 63 Nova and a number of other projects that are more full detail, this is scanned off an original kit. I don't know if they will go ahead and do something else with this in the sense of releasing a full detail kit. Things like the 65 GTO and the 68 GTO, is very easy to say no. There would be no further kits out of those because they were tooled up from promos, and therefore the parts to make them into the full detail kits don't exist in the new tooling sense because they weren't patterned. The 65 GTO obviously could be put over the existing 65 GTO kit, and the 68 GTO was an annual, so those parts don't technically exist. At any rate, this is released as Craftsman Plus, so it's curbside. The engine is an engine insert for the bottom, like for the chassis plate, and the hood is separate. So you can't put an engine in this if you wanted to. Now, the 64 Chevelle did end up being a full detail kit at some point as a 65, so maybe coming down the road at some point, possibly, could be, don't know for sure, no prediction of the future there, but that possibility would exist. But understand the 64 Chevelle Malibu SS, as seen here, was released as a Craftsman Plus kit back in the day. It was released this way. This was what the kit was. So it doesn't automatically have, I've seen a lot of people say, well, we'll wait till the full detail kit comes out. Well, you wait till the cows come home on those GTOs, and that may also be the case with this Chevelle. It has been significantly improved in the course of this retooling, where the headlights and taillights are now separate pieces. In the original kit, the headlights were just part of the chrome grille, so having actual glass, quote-unquote glass, plastic, clear plastic headlights is a major upgrade for this. So This will probably be something I pick up over the course of time. It's not necessarily anything I'm going to like kick the door down at the hobby shop over, but it is something I might like to pick up as time goes along. So that takes care of that. Over at Salvino's JR, they have two more next-gen Camaros. It does look a lot like the next-gen Camaros are going to be the only thing we're going to get this year. There seems to be a possibility that maybe some older 2023 Mustangs may get reissued as they go through some of the licensing they picked up from some of the Ford teams towards the end of last year when there wasn't time to actually run those 2023 Fords. But the new Fords and the new Camrys with the new body styles running this year do not appear as if they are going to be released this year, which is, yeah, kind of unfortunate. These June kits, even though as I'm recording this it is the 4th of July, also don't technically exist yet in the sense that they haven't been sent out. Not even to the club members have not gotten their kits sent out. That is apparently some sort of snafu with Cartograph not getting the decals to Salvino's on time. Within those last two statements regarding the decals and the fact that there probably will not be any 2024 Mustangs or Camrys until 2025, there is a whole lot of finger pointing and blaming everyone else but themselves, which is a long-standing 6-year-long Salvino's JR tradition. Without trying to get myself kicked out of the club itself by talking the company down, I understand the delays happen, and that may be the case with decals, although, you ought to know how far in advance you need to order something like that. The case with the retooling of the Mustang and the Camry turned out they couldn't do what they originally wanted to do with that, and then apparently had no backup plan whatsoever, and now it seems to be like, we're going to wait to see what the changes in 2025 would be, because while I understand their general point, you can't tool these things for 1 year at a time, because if they do that, they would, it would just not be financially viable. You kind of promise something, and then you not only are not delivering it on time, you're not delivering it at all this year. That's kind of unacceptable. It's a little bit beyond the pale. But in the classic cliche I like to use when I'm doing these videos, it is what it is. Because ultimately, no amount of complaining is going to fix that problem. So, the vintage kit this month is going to be Davey Allison's Rainier Racing 1987 Ford Thunderbird. Second release off of that 87, 88 tooling of the monogram kit. So, monogram origins here. So, understand that. These decals have been redone by Cartograph. They will have gold foil numbers. So, it's a really nice set of decals from the prototype of the decals. I would assume there's no reason that it would be bad in the actual printing of it, assuming that those decals ever actually show up. This should have been in our hands 3 weeks ago, and like I said, still hasn't even shipped yet. Over on the next-gen kits, you're going to have a release of Kyle Larson's 2024 Chevy Camaro in the Valvoline livery. I think he ended up winning a race in this livery since the kit was announced. I can't remember what race it would be. Maybe Nashville, maybe not. But I believe it might have been a road track, actually. It doesn't matter because I'm not going to go look it up. But I believe this livery actually did win. And then the other one will be Ross Chastain's 2024 Camaro, obviously, in the Busch Light liveries. So after Kevin Harvick retired, Busch Light went over to what is it called? Pitbull Racing. Pitbull owns the team, or half the team, Trackhouse. Over to Trackhouse. So this one, you'll notice, has a 21 years or older logo on the label. It's kind of interesting on that. It must be something to do specifically with the Anheuser-Busch licensing that was required to make this car, as the prior older vintage cars they did a couple of Junior Johnson kits with Busch as a sponsor of the car. Busch a Camaro and a 442 and a Monte Carlo. Those ones say 18 or over. This one, it says 21 and over. So apparently a vintage kit, I guess, is not appealing to children and would not be seen by children. You only have to be 18 to buy one of those. This one, 21 or over. I don't believe you're actually going to get carded at the hobby shop on this. But, legal is what legal is. I just thought that was funny because, like it was said, the older ones, yeah, they didn't say anything about the age of alcoholism on there, but it's on this one. Going overseas to Japan, only Hasegawa and Fujimi this month on these releases. So let's start over Fujimi. Fujimi is doing a greatest worst hits album in the last couple of months, and it's going to continue for several months into the future. Where some of these are like, man, why would you reissue that? Because holy moly. But this one's not too bad. This is a Nissan Sil 80, so this is an S13 plus an RS13. So it is the front end of an S13 Silvia bolted onto a 180 SX. This kit has the new Easy Adjustment System chassis in it, which was one of the bigger problems with this kit when it existed originally. It kind of a generic, junky Nissan chassis under it. Now it has a generic, everything turns and moves chassis underneath of it. The Sil 80 itself has been a pretty accurate body. The interior is a more modern interior than, say, built off the chassis plate would be. So, all in all, a pretty decent kit. These things run like $15 in Japan, so it's not like it's anything that's going to be, bad, so to speak, if you were like to buy one. Like, oh, I can't believe I spent all that money on this sort of janky kind of toy / model kit thing. So, yeah, that's back out if you're so inclined. And then a reissue of what is known as the Alto Works Touring N1. So, this is a Suzuki Alto. And the N1 is what is now known as Super Takeo. Which is Super Takeo is now GT3 class, but back in the day, Super Takeo was a Group N, which is like a near factory stock type racing series. Very little was allowed to be done to the cars. They had racing wheels put on them, they had roll cages put in them, and they were like stripped out for safety and weight reasons, but there were no real things done to the engine in terms of tuning. You might get a racing exhaust put on, so a little freer flowing on the back end, so to speak. And then they were long, like 6, 12, 24-hour endurance racing. And this is a real car. This really did exist. There are two team cars in here, the 9 and the 10. It's real hard to get any kind of records from this point in time, because this would have been the late 1980s, as far as like how well this car did or anything of that nature. But like I said, it is an actual real car. So the kit itself was tooled up in the late 1980s, early 1990s. It's okay. It's a snap-tight kit, actually. You can buy a street version of the Suzuki Alto as a snap-tight kit as well. This does have some roll caging and some racing seats and stuff like that, so it's kind of an interesting subject matter, just because like it's a K car basically, and let's race the K car. And if you follow Japanese racing for long enough, Japanese will pretty much race anything. This is borderline old school Japanese racing, where you notice that if on that box art there was like taped spider webs over the clear parts to keep them from breaking through the course of a race, so that you could drive the car home. So that's an old school Japanese thing. You look at a lot of the race cars from the 1960s, they had license plates on them, because you literally drove them to the track, raced them for a number of hours, then you drove them home. So that's back out there. Also released the R31 Nissan Skyline GTS-R. R31s didn't have a GT-R. This was as close as you could get to one. And this one is sponsored by Ricoh. I will say that for any reason whatsoever you wanted to purchase this car, go find yourself one of the Hasegawa kits, because holy Moses, this isn't what it looks like on the box art. This is the closest thing to criminal lying on a false advertising basis you could possibly get. Not only is this a junk kit in terms of what it actually is in the box, in the sense of having a generic motorized chassis, it's so generic it's underneath another kit in this segment, as well as being underneath like 8 different kits that are either have been released or will be released in the next couple of months. Was their generic chassis. It's why so many Fujimi kits of this era are very ill-proportioned, because that chassis went underneath 2-door coupes, it went under 4-door sedans, it went under 2-door sports cars, it went under 4-door luxury vehicles. That's why the E30 BMW M3 from Fujimi is crap, because That chassis also is underneath this GTSR. It's also going to be underneath a Toyota we're going to talk about in a couple of seconds. It literally is Lord of the Rings material. It is one chassis to rule them all, and it's really crappy at that. In addition to that, this kit's not a race car. It doesn't have a racing interior. It has a goofy 3-point hoop that goes over the back seat, but that is just part of the chassis tooling. It's always been in that, and it's in every single kit that shares this chassis, regardless of whether it's a race car or not. So you'd have to scratch build a roll cage for this. Doesn't have those SSR wheels in it because, well, it's a street car. It doesn't have racing wheels. This is just skip it, pretend it doesn't exist. Hasegawa made this exact same car, exact same livery, exact same year. Go buy that kit. You'll be much happier in the sense of A, it's just a great R31 kit, B, it's a good Hasegawa kit, and C, it's not this thing that Fujimi foisted out there. Speaking of that same kit chassis being underneath all bunch of cars, it's in this Toyota Crown 3.0. This box art is some 1980s legacy right here. In the many flaws of this kit, this is a high society kit. You may notice that the side pods, there's the lower doors and the lower valance there have that chewing gum that's ribbed for your pleasure because, yeah, it's got the chewing gum that's ribbed for your pleasure. Self-adhesive crap thrown in here that you have to cut into the shape of the lower doors should you want to do that. It also has some chrome pieces for over the fenders if you choose to do that because high society, yo. But this also doesn't come with that set of wheels that are on the box art in more false advertising. It has a set of 4-spoke twists instead of this sort of 3-spoke triangle pattern wheel. These wheels exist. They're going to be in a kit coming out in July. Why they couldn't just run enough of them off to be in this kit that you're advertising those wheels on, I don't know, but if you buy this specifically for those wheels, you should never buy this kit in general, but if you were to buy this kit because, like, oh my god, those wheels are so 1980s, yeah, you wouldn't get them because they're not in there. This has the same chassis that Nissan had, and yeah, it's very I don't know. I understand why they're reissuing things because it's free money, so to speak, and I'm sure that there are a bunch of people that will never see this video or don't regard my opinion as being worth listening to and will buy this because it's a 1980s car and it looks cool on the box art. But boy, that's an awful big waste of $15. You could have bought yourself 2 cans of Tamiya spray paint or half of a Revell kit or something else that you would have actually enjoyed instead of getting that hot mess in the mail. Alright, so over at Hasegawa we have a couple of things. First up, something that is a decal reissue, but not in a race car for once. This is the Time Boken series Yatterman Volkswagen Type 2 delivery van Dorenbo. So this would be sort of the evil villains of this manga TV show. Actually, Time Boken was like a cartoon and a movie and everything. It's a big property in the sense of all the things it spans. They pay for this licensing, so it won't be the only time you see this. And yeah, it's a reissue of that Type 2 van with a bunch of decals on it. Just not eggplant girls this time. This one won't get you a divorce, so there's that if you going into it. And then over here we have another animation related one. This is a Toyota Celica 1600 GTV Matsukiro Buzo out of the 40th anniversary of Yokoshiro Megadoc. This is the second one of these we've gotten so far off this 40th anniversary of the animation of the cartoon. This kit does have new 3D printed side view mirrors. Normally a Celica 1600 GT from Hasegawa would have the very period 1972 fender mirrors that are, just chrome mirrors way out on the front fenders, as you see in most JDM cars of that era. These mirrors on the animation car are up where we would consider door mirrors to belong in the United States, up on the A-pillars, and they're also great big blocky, late 80s Toyota mirrors, what it looks like. And so they're going to get resin printed items to replicate those mirrors. I think that's kind of neat. I'm not sure how much else of it would really match the show in terms like of the wheels and things like that, but it's a Celica, it's a cartoon, you can sort of pretend on that. But yeah, I thought that was fun. And then we're going to get, in the detail up version, Nissan Skyline 2000 GTR in the bunch of letters, KPC G110. I know what that means, but it's fun because box art, even though this doesn't have the things going across the top like a lot of Hasegawa kits does, it has as many words crammed into that tiny corner as possible. So what detail up version means in this sense is that all of the scripts and trim items are replaced with photo etch. So like the front grille piece there, the side trim, the rear valance trim, several pieces in the interior are replaced with PE parts, or basically because the parts are still going to be in there in plastic as well, but basically there's a fret of PE thrown into this kit. Costs about $5 more than the original issue of the 73 GTR, which has been out for about 8-10 months now. So actually no, it's probably been more closer to 13-15 months now, but at any rate, that's back out there if you are interested in one that has some more realistic side badging and things like that. And then we're left with a couple, two more kits here. Over on the race car side of things, this is the Wed Sports AAR Levin AE92 for the 1991 JTC. This car specifically replicates the car as it ran at Fuji in the Fuji Intertech race. However, this car in this pattern ran all year long. AAR was a manufacturer of seats, and it's kind of weird, kind of hard to tell in this image, although this image is better than the original one they had planned to use. But all of those AAR and the seat outline, which is what you see there in front of the rear wheels, are actually in silver. It looks like it was in like a crappy gray in the original picture, but yeah, they're in silver. I don't believe they're foil silver, and even if they were, Hasegawa wouldn't do that with their decals necessarily. But yeah, it's a fun one from Team Wed Sport. They've made the other Wed Sport car that ran in '92 as well, which is basically this same car a year later. So yeah, it's fun. This got the sport reclining seat sponsored car. And then lastly from Hasegawa, you get this. It is a 1993 Nissan Fairlady Z 300ZX 2x2. So this is a reissue of their new tool 300ZX that they did earlier this year. This has, and I got a lot of flack on the podcast for putting it this way, but this has the naturally aspirated bumper on it, that being a key new tool part of this kit. And people were like, naturally aspirated bumper, what's that supposed to mean? Okay, so the Fairlady Z 300ZX in this format, in the Z32 format, came in two different body styles, a 2+2 and a 2-seater, where the back seat didn't technically exist in the 2+2. The car itself is like, I think it's 4 inches shorter, and the gas tank's in a different place, if that really matters to you. The 2+2, technically speaking, has a back seat. I'm not sure you want to sit back there. It's like a lot of sports cars of that era where, yeah, it's got a back seat if you are like 7 or weigh 90 pounds, but otherwise you can't get back there. And they also came as a naturally aspirated V6 and a twin turbo V6. The early kit, the 89 that they released, was a twin turbo version. This is the naturally aspirated. The naturally aspirated car has a different front bumper because it has a slightly different cooling system. Obviously, there's no intercooler for the turbos in it. Also has a couple of different random odds and ends that are specific to the naturally aspirated car. And it has a new rear suspension component that includes like the back half of the drive shaft and the actual axle and the lower I'm sorry, sway arms, but the lower struts, supports, and things like that, because in the change between 1989 and 1993, the rear suspension got an update, and they actually updated those pieces. So that's pretty cool. Attention to detail. I appreciate that. In general terms, no one has ever made a late version, if you will, of this car. The Z32 has been kitted by, Hasegawa now, obviously, we're talking about it, but it also was tooled up by Tamiya and was tooled up by Fujimi. All of those cars were all 1989s. They were all done between 1989 and, say, like 1991 on that original design of this car. No one has ever released, until now, a later version with the facelifted front end. So that is pretty nice, pretty neat. You literally could not build this model prior to this. So I'm sure it'll come out again with the twin turbo if that more sort of aggressive twin turbo look is what you're after in a Z32. But for right now, that's what there is, and that is also what there is for the month of June. So guys, that wraps this one up. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you guys on the other side.